In the dim glow of an upscale restaurant nestled in the heart of a bustling city, where crystal chandeliers cast shimmering lights over polished marble floors, an ordinary evening shattered into chaos. Four burly men, their faces etched with unbridled aggression, stormed toward a lone figure seated at a corner table. The air thickened with tension as their boots thudded against the elegant tiles, drawing startled gasps from nearby patrons. The target was a young black teenager, his slim frame hunched over a simple meal, seemingly out of place amid the opulent surroundings. Without warning, the men lunged, their fists raised in a barrage of fury, shouting slurs that echoed like thunder through the refined space. The boy, barely out of his teens, recoiled but held his ground, his dark eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. The attackers, emboldened by their numbers and the perceived vulnerability of their victim, pressed on, overturning chairs and scattering silverware in a frenzy of violence. Whispers rippled through the room. Why him? What had this unassuming youth done to provoke such rage? The restaurant's staff froze in shock, phones trembling in their hands as they dialed for help. But just as the assault reached its fever pitch, a subtle shift occurred. One of the men paused, his hand mid-swing as a flicker of recognition crossed his face. The others followed suit, their bodies stiffening like statues in the sudden hush. What secret lay hidden behind the boy's composed exterior? As the scene unfolded, the true weight of the moment began to dawn on everyone present. This was no random act of brutality. It was a collision of worlds where prejudice met its unforeseen reckoning. The boy's calm demeanor hid depths untold, and in that frozen instant, the attackers sensed the ground shifting beneath them. The restaurant, once a haven of luxury, now pulsed with an electric anticipation, leaving onlookers, and perhaps you, the viewer, breathless, wondering, how deep do the roots of injustice run, and what happens when they are uprooted in the most unexpected way? The city of Atlanta, with its towering skyscrapers and vibrant streets, served as the backdrop for this unfolding drama. It was a place where old Southern traditions clashed with modern ambitions, where wealth and poverty coexisted in uneasy tension. Our protagonist, Jamal Ellis, was a 17-year-old black teenager who had grown up in the shadows of this dichotomy. Born in a modest neighborhood on the city's outskirts, Jamal's early life was marked by the quiet struggles of a single-parent household. His mother, a tireless nurse, instilled in him a fierce determination to rise above the limitations imposed by circumstance. From a young age, Jamal displayed an extraordinary intellect, devouring books on technology and business while his peers played in the streets. By the time he reached high school, Jamal had already begun tinkering with software in his cramped bedroom, coding apps that solved everyday problems for his community. What started as a hobby quickly evolved into something revolutionary. At just 15, he developed an AI-driven platform that connected underprivileged students with scholarships and mentors, drawing attention from venture capitalists. Unbeknownst to most, Jamal's innovation exploded in popularity, securing multi-million-dollar investments and catapulting him into billionaire status by his 17th birthday. Yet, he chose anonymity, shunning the spotlight to focus on his work and avoid the pitfalls of fame. He dressed simply, moved quietly, and preferred public transit over limousines, blending seamlessly into the everyday crowd. On this particular evening, Jamal found himself at Le Chateau, one of Atlanta's most exclusive restaurants, not for indulgence but for a discreet meeting with potential partners. The venue was a symbol of elite privilege: white tablecloths, sommeliers in crisp uniforms, and a clientele of influencers and executives. Jamal arrived alone, his hoodie and sneakers drawing subtle glances from the staff, who seated him with polite but distant efficiency. As he waited, sipping water and reviewing notes on his phone, the atmosphere felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Little did he know, 4 men at a nearby table had been watching him with growing disdain. These men, local construction, workers hardened by life's frustrations, embodied the undercurrents of resentment that simmered in parts of the city. They saw Jamal as an intruder, a symbol of everything they believed was wrong with the changing world. Whispers of "doesn't belong here" floated among them, fueled by alcohol and deep-seated biases. Their leader, a burly figure named Hank, nursed a grudge against what he perceived as affirmative action handouts, oblivious to Jamal's self-made success. As the evening progressed, their murmurs turned to plans, building a curiosity in the air. What would push them over the edge? The setup was complete. The pieces aligned for a confrontation that would expose the raw nerves of racial divide, leaving the audience leaning in, eager to see how one young man's hidden strength would alter the course of. As the minutes ticked by in Le Chateau, the tension began to coil like a spring ready to snap. Jamal sat quietly, his fingers tapping lightly on the table as he scrolled through emails, unaware of the storm brewing just feet away. The four men, Hank, his burly frame dominating the group, Tom, lean and sharp-eyed, Mike with the perpetual scowl, and Dave, the youngest but most volatile, had finished their meals but lingered, their conversation growing louder and more pointed. They glanced repeatedly at Jamal, their eyes narrowing with each pass. To them, he represented an affront, a black teen in a space reserved for those who earned it through generations of privilege they themselves barely clung to. Their biases, rooted in years of economic hardship and media-fueled narratives, painted Jamal as a threat, someone who must have cheated the system to be there. The first spark ignited when Jamal's phone buzzed softly, and he answered a quick call from his mother. Her voice, warm and encouraging, reminded him to eat well amid his busy schedule. But to the men, the sound of his conversation, polite, articulate with a hint of southern drawl, seemed out of place. Hank muttered under his breath, "Look at him, acting like he owns the place." Tom nodded, his face flushing with agreement. They didn't know that Jamal's platform had already helped thousands, including people from backgrounds like theirs, by democratizing access to education and opportunities. Instead, they saw only the surface: dark skin, casual attire, youth. The injustice simmered subtly at first, manifesting in stolen glares and hushed comments that drew uneasy looks from other diners. As the evening deepened, the men's alcohol intake fueled their courage. Dave, emboldened by the group's energy, stood up first, knocking his chair back with a clatter. "Hey, kid," he called out, though not loudly enough to alert the entire room yet. Jamal glanced up, his expression neutral, but inside a familiar wariness stirred. He had faced microaggressions before, the store clerks following him, the teachers doubting his abilities, but this felt different, more direct. The restaurant's ambiance, once serene, now carried an undercurrent of unease. Waitstaff hovered nearby, sensing trouble but hesitant to intervene in what might be dismissed as a minor disturbance. Hank joined Dave, his voice rising. The group approached Jamal's table, their postures aggressive, blocking the light from the chandelier above. "You think you can just sit here like you belong?" Hank sneered, though the story unfolds without spoken words to immerse in the raw emotion. Jamal's heart raced, but he remained composed, his mind racing through strategies honed from years of navigating hostile environments. He knew escalation could turn ugly, especially as a young black man in a predominantly white space. The stakes built slowly. One man grabbed a napkin from Jamal's table, crumpling it as if to assert dominance. Another bumped the table, spilling water that soaked Jamal's notes. The injustice revealed itself layer by layer. Flashbacks wove into the narrative, showing Jamal's journey, from coding late nights in a dimly lit apartment, ignoring the sounds of neighborhood strife, to pitching his app in boardrooms where he was the only person of color. Investors had initially dismissed him, their skepticism veiled in questions about his background, but his persistence paid off, turning doubters into allies. Now, in this moment, that hard-won success felt distant as the men's actions escalated. Mike reached for Jamal's phone, intending to snatch it, but Jamal pulled back just in time. The room's other patrons began to notice, some shifting uncomfortably, others pulling out phones to record discreetly. The emotional stakes heightened. Would anyone step in, or would fear of involvement perpetuate the cycle? The tension mounted as the men encircled Jamal, their bodies forming a human barrier. Dave shoved Jamal's shoulder, sending a jolt through his frame. Pain shot up his arm, but Jamal didn't cry out. Instead, he met their gazes with steady resolve, a silent challenge that only infuriated them more. Hank, the ringleader, leaned in close, his breath hot and reeking of whiskey. The restaurant manager finally approached, wringing his hands, but the men waved him off, claiming it was just a misunderstanding. This dismissal underscored the deeper injustice, how systems often failed to protect the vulnerable, especially when race was involved. Jamal's mind flashed to stories his mother told of her own experiences in the 80s, facing discrimination in hospitals where she worked. Those tales had prepared him, but nothing fully shielded the sting. As the confrontation intensified, the men's aggression turned physical. Tom grabbed Jamal by the collar, yanking him to his feet. The boy's chair toppled, crashing to the floor with a bang that silenced the room. Glasses shattered and a wave of murmurs spread. Jamal stumbled but regained balance, his slim build belying a core of strength built from gym sessions meant to channel his frustrations. The attackers pressed on, one landing a glancing blow to his side, bruising ribs that would ache for days. Blood trickled from a cut on his lip, staining his shirt. The emotional tension peaked here, highlighting the raw fear of being targeted for simply existing. Yet, amid the chaos, Jamal's phone slipped from his pocket, its screen lighting up with an incoming call from a high-profile contact, a subtle hint of his hidden world. The rising action deepened with the arrival of security, but even they hesitated, their training inadequate for the nuances of racial bias. One guard, a black man himself, locked eyes with Jamal, a silent acknowledgement of shared understanding. The attackers, sensing no immediate repercussion, grew bolder, shoving Jamal toward the exit as if to eject him like trash. Patrons watched in horror, some whispering about calling the police, but others averted their eyes, complicit in their inaction. This built the stakes further. The story delved into the psychological toll, how such incidents eroded trust in society. Jamal's thoughts raced to his empire, the companies he quietly owned, the charities he funded anonymously. If only they knew, but revealing it now could escalate danger. Hours seemed to compress into minutes as the assault continued in waves. The men took turns harassing him, one rifling through his wallet that had fallen, mocking the modest cash inside, unaware of the black credit card tucked away. The injustice compounded when a white patron finally spoke up, but only to suggest Jamal leave to avoid trouble, placing the burden on the victim. Emotional layers peeled back, revealing how racism wasn't just overt violence, but systemic indifference. Jamal's resolve hardened. He had built his fortune to combat exactly this, inequality disguised as meritocracy. As police sirens wailed in the distance, the tension reached a boiling point, the air thick with anticipation of the reveal that would shatter illusions. The narrative expanded on Jamal's backstory to heighten empathy. As a child, he witnessed his mother's humiliation at a grocery store, accused of stealing despite paying. That memory fueled his app's creation, designed to empower marginalized voices. Now, in the restaurant, that past echoed, amplifying the stakes. The men, products of their own hardships, layoffs, stagnant wages, channeled frustration into prejudice, a tragic misdirection. The story wove in broader themes, inspired by real events like the Central Park Five or modern-day profiling, showing how one incident rippled into larger societal reflections. As the police arrived, the men doubled down, claiming Jamal started it, their lies flowing easily. Officers questioned Jamal first, their tone skeptical, underscoring institutional bias. Bruised and cornered, Jamal remained silent, his dignity intact. The emotional build crested as one officer recognized him from a tech conference, a spark of doubt flickering. The attackers, oblivious, laughed, their victory seeming assured. But beneath it all, Jamal's empire loomed, ready to turn the tide in ways they couldn't imagine. The restaurant's chaos reached its zenith as the police handcuffed Jamal, the cold metal biting into his wrists amid the flashing lights of arriving squad cars. The four men stood triumphant, their chests heaving, smirks etched on their faces as they recounted their version of events to the officers. The room, now a spectacle of overturned tables and shattered glass, held its breath. Jamal, bloodied but unbowed, locked eyes with Hank, a quiet intensity radiating from him that began to unsettle the group. One officer, rummaging through Jamal's belongings, pulled out his ID and phone, pausing at the array of notifications from Fortune 500 contacts. In that pivotal moment, the truth unraveled like a thread pulled from a tapestry. The officer's partner ran Jamal's name through the system, her eyes widening at the results. Whispers spread. "Wait, isn't he?" The men, sensing the shift, exchanged uneasy glances. Dave's bravado faltered first, his face paling as the officer announced Jamal's identity. Not just a teen, but the reclusive billionaire founder of EmpowerNet, a tech giant valued at billions. The platform they unknowingly used for job searches or news had been his creation. The revelation hit like a thunderclap, freezing the attackers in place. Hank's fists unclenched, his body rigid as stone. Tom stepped back, mouth agape, while Mike's scowl dissolved into sheer panic. Dave, the instigator, trembled, realizing the gravity. Their assault wasn't on a nobody, but a powerhouse who could dismantle their lives with a single call. The emotional peak surged. Years of suppressed rage from racial injustices boiled over in Jamal's steady gaze, a mirror reflecting their bigotry back at them. The officers, now apologetic, removed the cuffs, turning their attention to the men. Patrons gasped, phones capturing the dramatic turn. The climax intensified as Jamal's lawyer arrived, a sharp-suited figure who commanded the room. Security footage reviewed on the spot confirmed the unprovoked attack, laced with racial slurs caught on audio. The men's world crumbled, their jobs, reputations, futures hanging by a thread. Jamal, in his quiet power, chose mercy tempered with justice, ensuring charges were pressed but advocating for education over mere punishment. The intensity crested in this reversal, where the oppressed became the arbiter, forcing a raw confrontation with prejudice. With the climax dust settling, the restaurant transformed from a battlefield to a courtroom of sorts. The four men, now handcuffed themselves, were led away by police, their faces ashen with regret and fear. Jamal, tended to by paramedics, declined a hospital visit, his bruises a temporary mark compared to the deeper scars of the experience. The manager, profuse in apologies, comped the evening for all, but Jamal waved it off, instead donating the equivalent to local anti-discrimination programs. As the crowd dispersed, whispers of admiration followed him, the unassuming teen revealed as a titan. In the days that followed, the incident went viral, footage spreading across social media like wildfire. Jamal's story inspired headlines. Billionaire teen turns tables on racist attackers. He emerged from anonymity not for glory but to amplify the message, speaking at conferences about systemic racism's toll. The men faced charges, assault, hate crimes, and in court, their defenses crumbled under evidence. Hank lost his job. Tom sought therapy for his biases. Mike and Dave enrolled in diversity programs as part of plea deals. Jamal's forgiveness, conditional on their growth, sparked public discourse on redemption. The impact rippled outward. Jamal's platform surged in users, funding initiatives to combat racial profiling in public spaces. Communities rallied, sharing similar stories, fostering solidarity. Inspired by true events like those of Oprah Winfrey or modern tech pioneers facing bias, Jamal's tale highlighted resilience amid adversity. Yet, the resolution delved deeper into emotional healing. Jamal reunited with his mother, her pride mingled with tears over the dangers he faced. He expanded his empire, creating scholarships for Black innovators, turning pain into progress. The story closed on a reflective note. In a world rife with division, one act of courage can illuminate paths to equality. What if the next time prejudice rears its head, we all choose to see beyond the surface? How might that change everything? Share your thoughts below. Has a twist like this ever shifted your perspective?